Hi, welcome to a video for the training for AV carts, how we do it with First in Michigan district competitions. Our carts are a little unique in that we don't just do webcasting, we also do the in-venue audio and large screen for everybody who watches. So real quick here, this is what the front and the back looks like. This is preseason when we've got them all together in one room. So it makes it a little easier for training. From the top down on the front view, you have two microphone transceivers, a tackle box. There's usually a keyboard in here. I have it out already. A keyboard is laying in on top of here, or should be. The tackle box has a couple of various things, adapters and stuff that you might need, but in most cases, almost never need. But there is a interface in here that is a Rapco interface for DJ laptops. So if you're using our provided laptop and accounts and such, you would use that to plug into the headphone out jack, and it will convert it to XLR into the mixer. Inside the drawer, starts out the season. It's kind of hard to see in it from over there, but there's microphones. That's the two microphones are in bags in here. There's various HDMI cables, maybe a power cable, sometimes AA batteries for the microphones, which you can also always get from Pitted Min. There is a box in here that is a converter box, which we really haven't needed recently, but it will convert various SDI and HDMI signals to whatever format you need it to be. Would be typically used with the projector or something like that. And then the computer itself is down here. There is an on and off and a reset button inside it. And at the bottom of the rack, a UPS just to keep things running. If we wind it, generally it turns out to be a trip breaker or a trip power cord or something like that. The UPS will keep it running. One note about the UPS is if you get this cart, it goes through a lot as through the season and as it gets moved around. This UPS is one that's designed that has to have the batteries in line in order to work. And what that means is if you go to turn things on and nothing turns on, the first thing you do is not tear apart all the cables and such in the back, trying to plug in things into something that works. Instead, there's 4 small screws. Take this off, and you'll find an Anderson power connector about right here, and it'll be loose. And all you need to do is poke it back in, and it should turn on, and then everything will be taken care of. Much, much easier than rewiring. Okay, zooming in a little bit on the back top of the cart, we've got antennas for those wireless microphones, power strips, which may vary from cart to cart a little bit, a network switch right underneath it, which has a diagram that I'll walk through a little bit later in the video. Just note that it is an enterprise grade switch. Avaya was bought out by Extreme Networks. That's where it came from. Note that the port numbers are odds across the top and even across the bottom. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 you're seeing in use here because I have all the carts connected together. And when we're in a bigger event like our state championship, then we might need to connect carts together and their addressing and stuff works so that all works. Note that we also use 3 different VLANs, 10, 20, and 30. 10 is the internet, 20 is the field, and 30 is the AV. That's to keep all of the MAC addresses completely separate. It's not just IP addresses, it's MAC addresses too. So any broadcast traffic of any kind is isolated to its particular VLAN. That's really important for NDI, it's really important for the AV stuff, and it's really important for the field management systems and their network to be untouched. The only reason we even connect to it is for audience display, which again, I'll talk about more in the video. Below that is our audio mixer. It is networked, and so it's very small, has a lot of channels, a lot more than we're currently using, a lot of great capabilities through USB and networking. But right now you'll see a network connection. You have 2 microphones, the red and the blue, coincidentally with the FRC. are plugged into it. You're going to plug the DJ. If the DJ brings his own laptop and uses stereo, you can use these 3 and 4, which will be set up for it. If you use a Rapco, you can use 5 that's set up for it. Another thing about these, why they look a little different, is a 1/4-inch works or an XLR works with this type of jack. The 1/4-inch would just go in the center. Below that are auxiliary outputs. Main L is where you're going to hook out to probably your school venue. In most cases, the school systems have decent, or whatever venue, has decent enough sound audio these days that we can just run a line out to it and into one of its inputs and go from there. The other scenario is you would run out from L or even LR to contracted audio that we would bring in, that would bring in bigger speakers around the room. Below that is a keystone patch panel that just kind of saves a little wear and tear and makes it a little easier to connect up our SDI. Please leave these 90-degree connectors on here. It's difficult to get the BNC connector in there, but that's where you would BNC connect in your cameras, and the monitor gets plugged in here for the actual monitor that you'll use, that you'll run AV on. So a little bit further down is our back of our computer and our SDI to HDMI converter, which is going to work for the projectors. I got a couple of wires that are kind of loose here that we tie wrap up as we can, that are for the monitor itself and the keyboard. Everything else should be Velcroed in here and kind of neat and out of the way, allow you to open and close the box pretty easily. The adapter, one thing to note about it is, and it's difficult to see in the camera, but right here next to the coax connection is a LED light that will be lit if there is video signal coming into this box from the HDMI. So that's kind of an important troubleshooting. And there's another LED by the USB, which tells you that the box is getting powered. Okay, after you log in, this is the desktop that you will see. At least in 2023, it shouldn't change between the years, so I'm hoping the training video lasts for a bit. So different people will save icons to the desktop, do different things. This is what it looked like before week 1. Sometimes people will put their event folders out here on the desktop. That is fine if you do that. Please just remember to delete them when the events are over. vMix obviously launches the vMix program, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then these are shortcuts really to Google Drive. So all of the first AV materials are available out there. Your opening, your startup videos, your safety animations, your gracious professionalisms, whatever media comes from first, the USA flag for the national anthem. That'll all be downloaded into this folder, and it'll sync up. When I say Google Drive, it copies everything locally to the machine, so you're not reliant on the internet for those videos to work. When this thing connects to the network or internet, it will talk to Google. It'll mirror all of the files for us automatically. Events in 2023 are shortcuts. Most likely, you'll be hitting this events folder and finding your event in alphabetical order. I'm using for this demo 2022 stuff. 2023, normally I double click if I was at Belleville, and there would be my sponsor slides for Belleville, any specific district scripts for Belleville, stuff like that. The 2023 shortcut is just a higher level of that. The event folder, the AV materials where we might have stuff, and then first AV. But those 3 shortcuts are there, but they're all part of Google Drive, which is the G drive on this computer. I did mention before the network diagram. And note this is actually 2 pages in case you would need it. But page 1 is typically how we do it. The venue internet connection goes into port 1. Port 2 goes into some type of field network. They'll either tell the FTA, Field Technical Advisor, will either tell you where to plug it into their larger computer or tell you to plug it into some type of D-Link or typical network address translation NAT router type of box. They should give you another port to connect to, which will be the field VLAN, and the computer will DHCP an IP address, and you can plug it in port 3. Then the other ports, as I said, are cameras. There they typically are. The IP addresses for all of these are always 192.168.25. And then for cart 1, field 1, it's going to be 11, 12, 13, 14. Field 2, it's going to be 25.20, 21, 22, and so on. Just gives you that kind of how does it work field. The alternative setup should hopefully not be something you need, but that's if everything has to be hidden or natted behind one box, you would just run it in and run off of the field. You could run that way. Not preferred because, again, we want our traffic, the stream traffic, all that kind of stuff to be away from the first FMS network. Okay, so if you're going to start with your competition, usually I'm going to pretend that this is a little bit further in the setup. Usually the setup to getting to audience display takes a little bit when you're setting up. You're going to fire up vMix, you're going to get your cameras running and all your cable routed and all that type of stuff before, and then hopefully the FMS system will be up enough to where they can give you an audience display. But for the purpose of this, I'm going to launch this audience display, which is using the off-season system, which I have running on a separate computer. And this is pretty typical of what you see. If there's not a signal, it should go away in a few moments. And I like to launch this first when I have desktop capture all set up for it, which I will explain in vMix, because I'm going to do it. If you're week 1, not much is going to be set up. We're going to have to set up the videos and all that type of stuff from scratch. If you're weeks 2 through 5, you're going to be able to open the previous week and all of the inputs will be set up for you. So it'll be much, much easier. For the training video, just for speed right now, I'm going to go ahead and open up this FRC AV training video that I have. And it's going to do that. It's going to load the presets so you can kind of get a flavor of what this would take. Usually it takes a few moments. That was surprisingly fast to bring up all of the inputs. And this one has everything. We'll walk through it. First, I'm going to walk through some performance stuff down here on the bottom, which we're going to see in our status line. Hey, it's a 1080 30p. That's what we're running everything at. We expect it to be 30 frames. The render time number, as long as it's under 20 milliseconds, you're good. You're not going to see any laggy jerkiness or any type of things like that. The GPU memory is going to go up and up and up as you add more video inputs. If we have a season that has a lot of videos, and Friday videos are sometimes different than Saturday videos and such, and that number gets closer to that 90, 100%, once the day starts after opening ceremonies, you're better off closing your movie inputs to save that. Just kind of keep an eye on it. And then you have your general vMix, what's it doing, and then what's the whole computer doing, CPU. When you first open vMix and you look at it, there's a general flow to it. On the left is a preview screen, and on the right is your screen that's actually showing. That's your live stream and your in-house projection. That's how vMix does it. That's how a typical video switching platform does this, regardless if it's software or hardware or any of that. You have effects, and it will change from one to the other, and that's what people are seeing out there. Only I left this overlay on by mistake. So that's what people are seeing. Depending on how you set up the videos, they will rewind or not rewind. We're going to look at this sponsor video, and we're going to set it to loop, which is different than most videos would be. And we're also going to tell it not to automatically restart. We do want it to play. We do want it to pause. but we want to jump in where we left off, because sponsor slides tend to get put up during the day, during the event, and we don't want to restart every single time and see the beginning every single time. We want to pick up from where we left off. Gives it a little bit better event flow. So even from a default, before we have the inputs and such this season, number one should always be this audio 1718. I'll get into the audio a little bit more detailed, but this is basically how we can have venue audio out for everybody and still have the streaming pickup audio. And then the number two input should be the sponsor slides. And the reason why is these are in this particular order is some things won't change and some things you will add and delete. And the things that don't change really belong first. So we have a sponsor slide every year. A note on that is it's a PowerPoint slide, but what you'll want to do is open that PowerPoint up and then say, save as another file type and export it as a movie. It's just much easier and much less resource intensive on vMix as a whole to do that. You will probably wind up doing that as an AV volunteer, because there are typically some last minute ads or some tweaks and changes from the local sponsors. The first sponsors as a movie, it stays the same all the time. But if you see it, it'll run slides. So moving again is audience display. So audience display is actually a desktop capture input, and it's going to catch our audience display window, which I just brought up. So in that input, so in that input or any input, you can adjust them by hitting this configuration cog down below. This has already been set up beforehand, and I'll go into a little bit more detail of it. But the audience display is a desktop capture, which if you hit change, will show you the different inputs. She'll show you that, and I can say local desktop capture, and there's my first. And if I select that, then it'll change it. I'm not going to do that right now because I've already selected it. I will point out that what makes the first audience display interesting is these checkered boxes are the filtered out color. When the color key is done here in the input, and if you don't have the color key going, you can see the magenta background, which then we can color key out. Most people would see a green screen or a blue screen. That would tend to make a lot of team shirts invisible. So magenta. You can hit the color key. I already have set it in here to very specifically that color code. You can also hit this little dropper and touch on the screen where you want that color. We always make sure to turn on anti-aliasing, because that tends to clean up any noise at the top of the, right here where it meets the text, the part of the screen we actually want to see. And once that masks that out, you can see back here, because I happen to have it in preview. If I turn it on and off, it's changing to black. That's going to allow us to layer this on top of or underneath stuff. We're going to layer it on top, and we're going to use overlay number 4, and that's what these numbers are. They're overlays. So just like in a lot of different softwares, it just means on top. If I hit this number 4, it's going to put it on top of whatever image is out on the output. So that can get confusing, because it also happens, I told it to put it on top of whatever. Hey, I can have that happen. That just means I got to turn it off. And notice there's some convenient buttons right here that kind of catch your eye with any of the transition stuff in case you were to miss that. Quickly turn it off. The other question would be, why is he clicking number 4 instead of number 1? That's just a best practice. Number 4 always wins. It kind of reverse logic, or think of it as the bigger number wins. If you have multiple overlays, 1, 2, 3, 4 always is on top, and we always want the FMS on top. So if we just all get in the habit of using number 4, we're all set. The next thing to set up is the cameras, and you're always going to have cameras, so the same order here. I have 2 style of cameras here, so I can go into some depth about that a little bit later. But one of them is an NDI camera, and the other is an SDI camera. The difference would be the NDI camera only needs a network cable, uses some special network protocol to put the video out. And we have some newer cameras that support that. You'll notice the camera says NDI HX on the front of it, of the PTZ camera. Again, a little bit more detail later. But these are the master cameras, and then the SDI camera. The reason why that's important is this is where, when I hit the cog icon, I can hit the PTZ and I can move the camera around, do different things with it, get it to where I want it. And then I can say create input at this position, and it will do exactly that. You can see I've already got 9 and 11. If I wanted to tweak input number 9, and I'll go down here, 9, there's my 9. Hey, I already labeled it camera full field, so that's kind of what I would want to see is a full field. I'm in a room, so I'm just using the picture of some trophies and boxes and such up there, but it's more like a centered picture. But if I center it how I want it to be, and then I say update input number 9, it'll do that, and now it's locked it in. This is important because I will create these different views, and then the camera will automatically move to what it should be. So usually it's going to do something like that. See, it's updating itself. Now, which brings us to why 2 cameras. So the 2 cameras are in here so that we can pretty much most of the competition, you could have one centered full field view like that, have our scoring overlay on it like that, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, you could actually let that run if you got to do double duties, if you got to step away, this is what you leave up. The professional, better look as we do these things every year pretty much has an end game that deals with a red and a blue side, and that's why we have these 2 cameras. So not only can we show the blue side or the red side at the end game, we can also hide the camera moving. So I set them up in the way that works here so that I've got camera 1, camera 2, camera 1, and see it says camera 1 full field. And you can change these names when you hit that cog and general. That's where you change that name. So make it meaningful. I know I've got that. And I'm also, these are little subtleties that I'll point out as we go. It's green at the top. It's green at the top of the output, and it's orange for the view that's in preview. So if I do something like that, I can see I've got this one's green, this one's camera 2 blue, and it's in preview. So now if I cut to that, nothing moves, and I can go to camera red, and then I can show that shot without any moving at the end game while we're waiting for the scores to come up. So that's why it hides it back and forth. I hide it back to blue. Sorry, I hide it back to blue. And then I could go to full field. I can cut to that. The other interesting thing that you got is you have some time to straighten that out and go to the center cam regardless of any of it would be hidden, because at the end of the match, the scoring display will change. Well, I should say when the scores are announced, it will change. And nowadays, it's been animation video and then a red wins or a blue wins. So that will take half a minute or so, and then you'll leave it up on the screen for a while, or actually the scorekeeper will, because the scorekeeper controls all of that stuff. The AV person does not. But that gives you a chance to move the cameras around. since I'm talking about cameras, I'm going to talk about one other special setting setup type of thing, and that is for alliance selections, the screen is different. So the scorekeeper will pop up the screen, will change the overlay, and the change that happens during alliance selection, which you have a little bit of time for because the teams have to get their people together and such, is there'll be a little box here. Let's look at that real quick. There'll be a little box here that's our background that we want to blank out, but it's way smaller than the camera. So how do you do that? How do you get this to work? How do you make it so that that camera works? So that's our full field view. It's just a little bit chopped down. See, if I move the red camera, it stays. Okay, so the way to make that work is with a special input that you create, and it's called color. So the input, again, I'm going to get into these inputs at some point here. With the various inputs, color is just what it says. It's a black or whatever color you want it to be. We're going to make it black in this case. And if you pick that input and create that input, you can create overlays with this layers multi-view. So what we've done is we dropped down and said, hey, on the back background, that's fine. But the number 2 one, I want to be this PTZ camera field, number 9, the full field view, because that's what I want. And I'm going to pick this little layout here, which you can change, but that, again, fence topic. If you pick this little layout and do this and drop this down into here, because we could change it, right? We could make it that. But we're going to make it the full camera view where we'd see, hopefully, all the alliance people. And you could tweak that, right? You could use another camera view. But once you have this layout created, you know that it's positioned to be in the right spot for our overlay here automatically. So that's how you fit in the whole camera view into a smaller window for the alliance selection. Okay, let's talk about opening and closing videos. And really, the cameras and the view in the game, a lot of that is somewhat easy for the AV person, because most of the media is controlled by the scorekeeper in the display. You just have to change the cameras to look interesting. And if you've done all the setup work, the actual competitions are kind of fun and not really super hard. The opening ceremonies and those videos, that's a little different. There's a lot of distraction. There's a lot of stuff going on around you during that table. You need to make sure that these videos run in the morning, quiet. Personally, I recommend, while everybody shows up at the event and goes for breakfast right away, go later. Go down to the field first. Make sure your videos work. Make sure the audio plays and all this the stuff can be heard, because the day will go very quickly and suddenly it'll be opening time. So these videos all get loaded up, and we're going to make sure that they automatically do some stuff like automatically mix audio. These should all do this by default because that's how vMix is configured in its preferences. So we're going to load up an opening video. And again, if I had to do this or update them for some reason, you can change, you can browse, and it should be those same shortcuts. This is already where we want it to be, but the first AV materials, that's where you're going to find the videos you're looking for. And once they get loaded in, all those preferences are there, and we're all set. So I've loaded a couple of videos here, and if you're the flow of the event, it's typically there's an event opener both days. Safety animation will be one day, different alumni videos, different whatever has come out from first as part of the actual opening script. Those videos will be called for, and you'll look through that script beforehand, hopefully with the MC, and be able to kind of know how that flow is going to work. For any of them, if you have no overlay and a typical camera view, a full field camera view, no overlay, and you're ready, and then everybody's ready for the event to start, they give you the thumbs up, you cut over to it, and away you go. Troubleshooting wise, just to know, I see volume bars here. This tells me there's audio going. Even without hearing it, I know there's audio going. I also know there's audio in the source. Kind of a tip on the side. If you have the audio button unchecked and it's blue here and you see nothing here, there you go. That's why. We'll also notice that some of these videos come a little hot audio-wise, and that's why we're seeing all the way up into the red bar. Over here on the right-hand side, we can see the individual ones. So if you need to, you can bring down the volume just a touch or bring it up just a touch. So that adjusts that red line. And again, I don't even have a system hooked up. I can just tell by looking at the bars. And typically you're going to just bounce between the video and the field. And then you would load up the next video, same thing. Cut to the video when it's called for in the script. Video plays, video ends, and you fade. I will note that too with the videos with vMix, it's giving you some numbers on the bottom, right? That's how long it's been going for. That's how long it is, and that's how long is left. So important to know. To talk real quick about the national anthem, usually someone sings the national anthem. Not always, but usually. This video, though, because of that, you want to be really careful with to know whether or not you need that audio. And you want to get comfortable with this. Again, great thing to do in the morning while nobody's in the room. Get comfortable with, oh, I can run it, and I see audio content, but it's not blaring the Marine band out so somebody can sing. If we don't have the singer, the audio button fixes that, but we want that done beforehand, obviously. So that you can do, again, in the cog, automatically mix audio. There's my box. I'm good to go. Now if I cut over to this, the national anthem is going to play through the PA. So just make sure you're really comfortable with that one so that you get it right. Okay, let's talk about these inputs. So in vMix land, how do these inputs get here and how do we organize them? First, one nice thing that can be done with any of these is right now there's tabs right here. And a lot of the vMix interface is a little overwhelming when you first see it, that there's a lot of littler clicks like this in there. All inputs is what we're looking at now. These colors can be right-clicked and named to whatever you need them to be, and you can then use them however you need to be. So like this game, if I know I'm going to use the audience display, I can change the color of that cog under. If I want to use this game and I have this audience display and I want to change that color, if I go to general, there's a category button. I'm going to make that red. And it changes my cog too, red. So I'm going to do that for my camera views real quick here. And see they're changing red as I go. And I'm going to change these opening ones. Well, since I already have one that says Saturday opening, let's go with that. because you might have Friday opening. Once I've done that, now all inputs show up here, but it's a little bit more organized. I just have less to look at. So I click the game, and now I'm seeing just the game stuff. And when you have 40, 50, however many qualification matches you typically wind up with for a day and a half, once you get past opening, it's kind of nice to just click this. The only thing you might have to change so that you can find it easy is whether or not you want your sponsor slide to show up there. But it's just very quick to be able to look at things like that. Very quick to be able to go, I need those opening videos. Okay, here I am. I'm all set. Some people like that. Some people prefer just show them all to me and kind of keep them in an order. Personal preference. So that's the inputs. Getting the inputs. The add input button is where anything new gets added. So if you open up vMix with nothing, but it will have 2 blank inputs, that's where you start from. And then you have the various inputs that you can use. For most of ours, video is exactly what, these are pretty self-explanatory, but this video is exactly how you get a video file. So you can browse for it. This list will get long. You can clear this list. I'll even do it. Now they're all gone. I can browse. It'll go look for videos wherever you have them. In our case, again, it's going to be the Google Drive. This is the longer way to go about it. And first AV materials, if I'm looking for specific videos. We don't have any out there yet for 2023, so this will be full of videos in a few weeks. But that's how you get a video in camera. So a camera is a hard SDI line. That's where we're going to get the drop-down box, and it's going to be 1 or 2 typically. That's our coax connected SDI cameras. NDI capture usually is just local desktop capture. And first, for the specific window that's doing the audience display. The NDI capture would be for cameras. Now, again, I'm in a room where preseason everything is hooked up, so we're going to see a lot of stuff here that you normally won't see. You're normally going to see, oh, I'm FiM Video 5. You'll see your own output, and this is a camera. And it happens to be one of the cameras I'm using for our demo here. And it shows me the IP. I can click it, and it's going to put it in just like a normal camera. Did it under NDI, though. Image or photo. Image would be the one if you needed a JPEG or a PNG file, something like that, that comes in. And I should mention that this could come in with a sponsor logo, or you might be asked for a sponsor video that might come in with a 30-second, a 1-minute commercial spot, or something that demonstrates something very cool like robotics in use at their workplace, that type of stuff. And usually that happens because an event coordinator comes up to you and says, hey, somebody from XYZ Corp is here, and they brought this video. Can you play it? This is when you say, yes, you can. Take whatever they've got and copy it to the hard drive. Don't use the flash drive. Just a best practice. Copy it somewhere and find it, add it, set it up the same so that it automatically restarts with transition, and you should be good to go. If it's already noisy in the room, you can actually test these videos too, because you can use this little play button right here, and it'll play. And I don't have it. I could put it in the preview if I wanted to, but I can play this little video here. I can see what it's doing, and I can see the audio is good, so I know it's going to work. That's how I know it's going to work. And when I put it over here, yeah, if I want to hit the restart button, sure, but I should, again, automatically restart with transition. So it should fix that for you if you have to do it in a rush. Another key point about being able to play a video. At the end of day 2, when the room is very noisy, usually during the semifinals or so, judge advisor may come up to you with the chairman's video. which should be on a USB stick. Be as discreet as possible, because many times these USB sticks are from a team that hopes to get it back, and so it's some bright color with large identifying team numbers on it. Be discreet about that you're getting it, put it on, load it up, save it to the hard drive, put it somewhere, even in a different color, but load it up, look at it, hit this play button, make sure that you see some audio there, make sure that you've got automatically play with transition, automatically mix audio, and automatically restart. And then everything should be good when that comes and you put it up and you play it, because you won't really get the chance to test it outside of that. Just look for the material to be correct. Really, from the different inputs, that's all we use in FRC. FTC can use web browser. I won't really go into that, but yes, you can use a URL and you can do it. There's some tricks with it where you right click on it and you can use the mouse buttons and stuff. Most of the FTAs would know how to do this, and if you would have to do it, that's probably where it would come from anyways. So that really covers the inputs. Again, try not to have a whole bunch of them. Don't confuse yourself with a bunch of different camera views. Over to the right is the audio mixer, which each one of the inputs, when you create it, if it has an audio source, it'll have it over here. It should go in like the USA movie. It should be there. It should have a volume control. It does have a cog for some more advanced settings, which I'm not really going to get into because you shouldn't need them. You have a volume control here, and they all should say M. I'm going to jump back to the audio input and mention audio bus A. So the way we do our streaming and the audio working and all is this input here, this audio input 1718, which once it's picked, it's picked. So it's not very easy to see it. I'm going to go ahead and do this and then cancel out of it. When you pick the audio device, what you're really picking is this X18 ASIO, I believe they call it, but ASIO driver. Once you pick that, we always use channel 17 and 18, which are mapped in the mixer. I know this is an advanced concept, but just to stick with me. We use input 17, 18, you click OK, and you get that input. I've already got it done. It's already here. It's already working. And that's, if you're opening a default presentation, it should already be there. Some kind of sponsor slides should already be there. So the caveat to this is we assign it to bus A. If you assign it to bus M, bad things will happen. You will create a feedback loop. I'll get into the mixer in a moment, but it is a separate audio feed that comes back to our computer. Our computer is already sending out audio. That's how the game animation sounds work. That's how the video audio works. All of that type of stuff works off of USB 1 and 2, because that's all Windows understands. And 1 and 2 go out to the Behringer mixer. And then 17 and 18 come back. I'm going to jump to the Behringer mixer in a moment, but for now, bus A, the only thing you have to worry about bus A should already be done for you is this audio input 17 and 18. And when you're actually using it, you'll see signals show up here. For example, if I play, let's play this guy here. I do the event opener, and that's going to create some audio signal for us. That's going to show us a little bit what's going on in real time. So that's the video itself. That's vMix sending it out the main bus, which is going to go to USB 1 and 2, which is going to go out to the audio mixer. And it's going to have a main volume too, the master volume. The A bus volume is completely separate from that. And notice there's a little bit of a difference too. The master has been tweaked down just a hair, but returning back hasn't been. So we're seeing just a little bit of peak. So 17, 18 returns to A. There's A. It shows you that. Okay, you talked about this for a couple minutes. Why? Why do I care? All right, we care because we don't want feedback, and we want to be able to send that out to our stream. So the live streaming actually happens all through this button here that says stream. And all of these fancy settings about where they're going to go to are going to be provided by First directly, actually a subcontractor for First that we use now to handle all of our streaming needs, which makes our job significantly easier. They also handle any matched recording. So all of those will be set up by them, but what we care about for this discussion is, see how it says bus A in here? That's where the audio is going for the live stream. If somebody says, I don't have any audio, or I can't hear the audio, you're looking at bus A and you're looking at audio 17 and 18 output. And if there's nothing, if there's signal there, then it's upstream, hey, help us out. If not, then we have to go back and look at exactly the assignments of the A bus and the mixer. Okay, this is a diagram of how the audio works. Okay, so I look at this diagram. I'm going to start from the bottom on this side and work my way around, and here's why. So you have audio that happens on this computer, whether it's vMix, whether it's any sound on the PC, which is why you want to turn off those annoying little beep noises, or the audience display. They're all going to feed this vMix Busmaster or the Windows Audio Default, and they're going to get put on USB 1 and 2, right and left, coming out of the computer, which are assigned to channel 17 and 18 on the mixer itself. And we can then grab that fader on the mixer, which I'll show in a second, to make the computer louder, quieter, and the venue as a whole. From the mixer, anything, including the vMix PC itself and the mics that are being used, DJ music, but we've got that blocked out. We're using a certain bus, and that bus, the live stream bus, is assigned to USB output 17 and 18, which comes into that vMix 17 and 18 input, assigned to bus A, and then goes to streaming and recording. And recording we don't do so much anymore. It's automatically done by our First contractor friends. So that's the logical flow. When you look at the mixer, first, when you open it up, it's going to say, do you want to connect? And I do want to connect. And I'm field 1, so I know 25.13 is correct. You're going to want to always say mixer to PC. Let the mixer come up with what it had configured. This is what it looks like in default in the beginning of the season. You got a red mic, you got a blue mic, a DJ left and right if they brought their own laptop, a Rabco, which is in the tackle box. If they don't, it has a right and left earphone size jack that plugs into a laptop audio interface, and then it converts it into one mono XLR, like on the back of the mixer. And that's what these channels are. There are 16 input XLRs on the back of that mixer on the back cart, if you refer back to that in the video. And then along the bottom are all the outputs, which are the buses. And that's all over here. So you have main, left, and right, which you're going to plug into left on that output of the mixer and go to the venue. And that's going to control your volume. And I'm looking at all the faders as they are for the venue itself. The live stream button will be what gets returned and then what gets put on bus A. So this is how, if we don't want to worry about anything with the DJ music, it's out. It's completely off. So you've got microphones and that's it, and vMix PC for gain sounds, and that's it. That's pretty much it. These generally don't need to be adjusted. They're there. They're all set at 0 unity, and you're all set. Main L&R, that's going to depend on the venue and how much you're going to have volume-wise. Other special features when we're into the audio, pretty much the settings should already be done. If you find that you've got a DJ laptop and things are a little too quiet, well, you can go look specifically. I've highlighted this channel now. And if I hit channel, you can raise or lower the gain of the input. The thing to remember about the gain of the input, I don't have any audio source running right now, but you generally want to shoot. This isn't, without a lot of stuff, this isn't a typical it's a different style of meter. So you want to keep it somewhere here and there between 20 and 15 at the most. You don't want it to be pegged all the way up here. You're going to have distortion. You're going to have a bad day. So between in there and between 15 and 20. So if it's too quiet down here, you can raise this up or lower this if it's too loud. The mics should be fine. They've been set that way at their gain of plus 12 for a long time, and it's worked fine. So if I'm going to tag through these channels and some of the settings in the mixers, which we really shouldn't have to do too much, but I just want to point out how some stuff works. Okay, I'm going to jump over here to the mixer on the actual machine that I'm recording the training video on, so we can see some real audio as it hits this mixer and what exactly is going on with it. So I'm using the red mic, so you can see there's the audio signal here, and you can see there's a main signal here. Any of the adjustments then, if I'm moving across the top for it, if I needed to do it, I can see kind of a channel overview, which is going to show me all the different things that I've got going on effect-wise. And so I've got a noise gate, a compressor, and I've got some equalization here that's turned on. The most important would be low cut. So let's go through these. So I've got my input mic gain. Now my mic gain is looking pretty good here. Generally speaking, again, with this meter here, you don't want to go, you want to go somewhere around here in that 15-ish range. So I'm just talking normally. But if I yell real loud, 1, 2, there, see, I broke 10. Just to kind of show how that signal works. I'll explain why I yelled real loud and it squashed it a little bit in a minute. But that's how I set my gain. Now over here in the next box is a noise gate. And what that's going to do is it's going to cut out your background noise. Most of the time when the game announcers are going and there's a lot of noise in the room and there's background DJ music, this is a wonderful thing. Cleans up the live stream, makes it just sound a little bit more professional. There's some more specific adjustments if I go into this gate. But generally, from here, I can see that it's working. When the red bar comes down, it's closing off the sound, like when I'm quiet. And I can adjust this threshold. So if you have a more soft-spoken person, you'll want that threshold to be lower so that it opens the gate. If you have a loud person, I can move it up like this, and it'll jump in more often. Equalization, low cut, really is all you really should have to worry about. That just handles the loud popping sounds of a P or the handling of the mic. And that's pretty much it. The compressor is nice, and what it does is it allows you to boost up a little bit of the soft sounds, but really in our case, it allows us to squash down the loud yelling, mostly because if somebody yells at the top of their lungs because, you know, it's the finals or whatever, it's a sporting event, people are going to yell. This helps smooth out the signal for any of that. So looking at these individual settings, there's my gate, there's what it's doing. I'm clamping it down, basically everything it can. And then there's some adjustments on the timing of it, which I would recommend you not mess with. I am going to talk about a special type of gate when it comes to the DJ, though. So the DJ, whether they're using this or the Rapco, and I've changed all three of those, and they all look the same. There's this 8 dB range, a low threshold, but the mode is ducker. Okay, this is how we manage to play music and not have to start and stop songs or have a DJ manually do anything. What this is doing is every time that little red bar comes down while I'm talking, it would reduce the output of this by 8 or 9 dB. And you can, sometimes you have to do that by touch, but it only takes 1 or 2. It's subtle. You shouldn't kill the music completely when someone talks, but it should go down enough so that you can clearly understand them speaking. And that's the whole thing about a professional audio at this level for a district competition. It just brings another level to it. You don't have people straining to hear the person that's talking. And if you do, you will get complaints. And briefly on the compression settings, this is what keeps the yelling. It helps with the quiet voices too. So The makeup gain is what I want to change. It's like, well, so I'm squashing it. That's what a quiet signal. I want it to go up. So that helps with the makeup, with the quiet, soft-spoken people. But it does help with the yelling, because the louder I go, the more this red line comes down, and it keeps that volume maintained. One thing you want to do, particularly during alliance selections, is get into this gate setting. Whether you get into it here or here, doesn't matter, but you can turn this gate off just by clicking that button. Why? Why would you do that? Well, you get a lot of kids and a lot of MCs, and they aren't right on the mic, or they're soft-spoken because they're in a big room of people. You know, and it's understandable they're going to talk a little quieter. And this noise gate, if it's on and you aren't breaking that threshold, it's going to make it sound like the wireless mic is cutting out, because the audio literally is being interrupted. So the simple advice is, for the alliance selections, just go in for the red and the blue mics and turn the noise gate off. And then everybody should be able to hear. And if you're really good about it, if kids are quiet, you know, when you're trying to hear who did they pick and stuff, you can always grab this fader and change it. Like, well, I'll use this one because I'm not in it. You know, always boost it all the way up if you have to. You know, it can happen, especially if they're further away from the mic. You should really be pretty darn close to the mic, within an inch. That's how I'm using it. I'm using one of our typical mics. But the short and the long of the tip is, turn off the noise gate during alliance selections when the kids are talking. It will help people hear. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about the PTZ optics cameras that we use for our live streaming and game viewing on the bigger projectors at the FRC competitions. So this camera is a PTZ camera, meaning pan, tilt, zoom, but it's made by a company named PTZ Optics. So I'm just pointing that out just because some people get a little confused about the PTZ camera. Well, we used to use one that was fixed, but it was still, some people would call it the PTZ camera, so you get the confusion. Anyways, we have 2 of these cameras per field now, and they are capable of power over Ethernet. So there is no power to be ran to them. The switches that we use in the AV carts all are PoE capable, so they all run. You run an Ethernet cable to it, it's going to turn on. Slightly out of view in this picture to the right of the coax is an on-off switch. You will probably at least once run down and wonder why your camera isn't working and why it looks dead, only to have to run back up to the camera to find out that you bumped the switch. So it's there, be careful. And then there's a coax hookup, which is pretty much the way you should stick to doing it. There is, and the newer cameras that we bought are NDI enabled, which means you don't need the coax, which is nice because you don't have to run that extra wire, but does have some peculiarities about NDI in general. It should just discover, sometimes it doesn't. And so if you go down that road, you might have to troubleshoot a little bit more. So it's a trade-off. Do you want to tape an extra wire, or do you want to maybe troubleshoot a little bit more? I'm going to switch back to the other desktop, and I'm going to cover really quick the NDI, just in case. Well, let's just open up a brand new one. Let's do a new, and it's based on our 1080. Blank. So this is a little bit more advanced. That's what vMix looks like if you just bring it up and you don't open a preset. Right. And let's stick with the NDI discussion for now. So in order to add that input, I want to add an input, and I want to add an NDI source. And then it'll go out on the network and it'll start discovering this stuff. What's NDI out there that I can grab? Well, I'm going to use this camera that's sitting right next to me, happens to be FiM Video 501, and that's what it's identified as. If you watched earlier in the video, you'll notice the top of the shelf or whatever, it has some kind of picture. And I can pick that, say OK, and there it is. I can move my hand in front of it because it's next to me. It's not focusing very well because I haven't zoomed in too hard. Since it's NDI, it thinks it's got audio. It doesn't. I'm going to turn that off. And that's it. It's going to work like a normal camera input like the NDI camera does too. Either way, the PTZ functions are here, which I discussed in the other videos. With NDI, it already knows the IP, and you can use this Sony protocol and just say connect, and it's good to go. And there I move in the camera, and I can create an input at this position. Simple as that. Usually for best practices, either I'll just leave it like this because I know that's the master, or I'll rename it Master Camera 1. I want the input where I run the PTZ to be in the beginning of my inputs, and I want it to be labeled so I know that's where I go to move the camera around. It actually already did this because I just did a virtual one. So I'm going to close that virtual one. Yes, I really want to close it. And say, here's, so as long as I'm doing it from scratch, if I'm doing a camera from scratch that's a regular SDI camera, I just have to know which port it's plugged to on the computer on that card, 1, 2, 3, or 4. And it will pick by default my 1080. It'll say 30p, which is what these cameras are set for. And I click OK, and if all is well, I get a picture. If all is not well, I don't, and that's going to mean I grabbed the wrong port. Maybe I plugged it into number 2 instead of number 1. If you use those 2 right angle connectors on the back, it should be 1 or 2. You just need to double check, make sure you twisted those BNC connectors tight enough. You'll sometimes have problems with that, with the length of the cable, but it's just a simple twist the cable. The NDI stuff looked really simple and came up really simple here. But notice when I did it, I saw a lot of stuff. You won't see this at your event. You're going to see your own machine's displays that it's got, which is FiM Video 1 here. And you're going to see a camera, and that's it. You won't see all these other ones because you won't be with all the other carts doing all the other NDI sources. NDI works great when it's all on the same subnet. Our carts have 3 VLANs. We have 3 different networks going on. It can get a little confused. So if you're trying to do NDI and you don't find the camera you're looking for, here's what you're going to want to do. NDI tools are some software tools that are installed on all of these machines. NDI Tools 5, and then there's this one here called Access Manager. Access Manager lets us control how we're going to grab NDI sources. If we wanted to have some security over it, we could decide, who can join what stuff. That's beyond what we need. But there's a way in here to say, oh, I want an external source. If you're having trouble finding your camera and you know it's there and you can ping it, and there's a web page you can access to it. All you have to do is go to it with a web browser. You can specifically add that camera in here, and that will probably help you out. NDI, IP address, local device name if you know it. The cameras do have it. I'll show you that in the web browser interface. This is usually enough to get the device to work. It might not work instantaneously. It might take a minute, but it should be enough to get you to find it on a multi-NIC card like this is. One of the things that's been done on all these AV computers is we've set the preferred NIC to VLAN 30, so you shouldn't have to do that. This actually is going to force the NDI Discovery to use that AV VLAN. Keep everything where we want it to be on the AV VLAN, not anything to do with the field. That's enough. If you are interested in the camera itself, let's see, what do we say this is here? 192, 168, 25, 54. So I'm using the one from field 5. we can get on. That tells me it's there. I'm not going to go into security, but don't hook these things up to the internet. Never hook them up to the internet, never have a problem. So they're on our private network. You'll notice here there's a pull down called NDI config. Now I know the name of the camera and I know what channel it's on for whatever. We don't really care. It's always channel 1 or chan 1 like that. But if we jumped back into that software, yes, I know this is a slow way. We jump back into Access Manager and look, and I want to add an external source with an IP address. Oh, that local device name will be different. So if I needed to go this way, I could say 192.168.25.51. Oh, and I can say it's a PTZ optics device. And now it's asking me this. And we know channel 1 is already there, but we rename the device. I say okay, and there it is. Now it's added. That'll help it discover more. So I'm going to make that go away because I don't want that. I'm going to cancel out of this. That's just, if you need to troubleshoot some NDI stuff with that camera, there it is. Okay, let's talk about sponsor slides. So sponsor slides are going to come, and they're going to be in your event folder. I'm digging up a archived one from Belleville in 2022. So the PowerPoint one that the EC is going to modify, if they need to add any local things to it, that sometimes first in Michigan in the state, we get late sponsors that get added, changes get made, or a company changes, logo changes, those type of things. It means that this happens a little closer to your event. So you should be doing this on, Thursday, if it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday event. If you open up this, the number one tip is make it an MP4 movie, and it'll just make it easier, less resource intensive, and it'll just work. Audience display, really, FTA should be able to help with that, any installation of it. It's already there, so in theory, I'm going to close it and we'll restart it again. Okay, it should, when it connects, we'll turn it on, talk to the field management system, and if those two messages that go by are about it getting messages back and forth, but if there's a version mismatch, it'll tell you that. And in fact, it'll say version mismatch in a darker reddish color on this. And it should automatically update itself when it brings it up. There are menu options for the audience display. If you right click on it and you say open config panel, when it comes up, there's a couple there's our check for updates button. So I can click that button and it will check for updates. So you should be able to get any FMS version mismatch message. That's what it means. Check for updates. We use 720 because the whole monitor is 1080p, so it fits nicely centered in the screen and can be behind everything. Another thing we do is here under video, we want to drop this down and make sure that it says alternate allow window capture, because that's what we're doing. We're going to capture a window. The default minimize CPU utilization, we don't really have to worry about. There's plenty of horsepower for this. The default, we don't have to worry about the CPU so much with these computers. If it were ever a problem, you could use a laptop and then remote desktop capture that. But that's pretty much the settings that we would need. So we're going to close the config panel. And notice that when I right-clicked it on here too, there's the animation test, which will run the animation, which whenever we have vMix up. I'll show that in a second. At least it shows you that it covers the screen and it runs. Sometimes that has been an issue. That's why we test it. You can also play a sound, so you can play the charge sound or something like that to make sure that your audio works. But you are usually going to test that with the FTAs anyways during a test match. So those options are there, and that's pretty much the quick and dirty discussion of audience display. What we're going to worry about right now is what to do in vMix with it. So in vMix, I'm going to make this full screen for me. If I added an input and I say NDI desktop capture, I have to click the desktop capture because it's local. And then this app, the audience display, identifies it as first with the nice logo there. So we can click that, click OK, and now I've got it. And I can turn it on as an overlay. Now I'm still at the animation. And if we wanted to test that, I know it's working. I know the desktop capture mode is working. If you get a black screen here, again, that's why we, in Open Config Panel, selected the video. Oops, I'm clicking on the wrong screen. That's why here we did this allow window capture. You see black? It's probably because that's selected. Close config panel, jump back, and now I got my fuchsia screen that I want to see with my overlay, and I need to color key that out. So I'm going to be a little exact with this and give it all red and all blue and no green. That's the exact color we're talking about. I can even add it to my custom colors. And I'm going to pick that, and it's already done. It's already aliased it out. And we're going to go ahead and turn this anti-aliasing, and we're going to put it on medium right in the middle, just to get rid of any noise where the separation occurs between what we want to see and what we want to mask. And that's it. That's how you do the key code, or color key. That's how you do the color key to make audience display work. And what's nice about that is the scorekeeper now will take care of everything. When they push the button, that's when the scores will come up. That's when the automation will play. That's when, and it'll just automatically cover what it's supposed to and uncover what it's not supposed to. For the two cameras, you set up your red and green views. And the two cameras, you can set up your main camera for the shot that's wide. Use the PTZ, move it around to wherever that center of the field looks best. I'm going to say, well, let's pretend it's right about there and zoomed in a little bit. And I can say, boop. Okay, now I created myself a center field, and I'm going to create a, let's see, it depends on, you want a red and a blue. You just want to jump around. It just depends on what you're going to show first, because this camera would be up. So I'm going to make this other view the blue side of the field. And I don't have a field in front of me, and I'm guessing it's left. So don't flame me in the comments. So I have those two camera views, and I can go say, and then we'll go in on the other camera and get our view. Notice with SDI, we've got to tell it what kind of camera it is we want to talk to and what the IP is. So this is a PTZ Optics, and I'm using the camera from field 5 in this case, so that's why it's 52. and I can connect to it. So now I can create my input, have the other side field. Okay, and why I did that is so that at the end of the game, if I want to do a main camera shot, and I want to, so I've got the main camera up here, and we're waiting for the scores, I can jump to the red camera and cut to it without moving things around because it's camera number 2. And then I can go to camera 1 and move it and then switch. So now I can see the end game state at both the blue alliance and the red alliance ends of the field, switch between them, wait for the game animation to show up, or if I want to change it earlier than that, I can just make sure that camera 2 is what I'm seeing, and then I can change camera 1 to main. It'll jump to main, cut back to it. I'm ready to go for the next match. That's the basics of setting that stuff up. Other inputs that I'm going to add in here, I would add in a sponsor slide. Like, again, PowerPoint movie is the best way to go. I can quick go to desktops. Well, normally I go to desktops, events, find my event. Nothing is there. Too early in the season. So I'm going to dig around for older things at the moment. I didn't think so. So if I go grab an older event, there's my sponsor movie. I say okay. I'm going to drag it all the way over here because I want it to be the number 2 input. And I'm going to make sure that it doesn't do any audio. It automatically plays, but it doesn't automatically restart because I want to pick it up where it left off. Okay. Other than that, the only thing to add would be movies. It's going to be videos. It's going to be first videos. So in my other part presentation that wasn't as detailed, that already had the stuff, the only thing I was doing different was going into the first AV materials from last year and then grabbing those videos from here, whatever it was. Event opener, okay, okay. There's my event opener. I would be moving it more like here because I put all these videos and all those camera views would be after them. That's just a kind of a flow of the event best practice thing because you're going to need these videos first thing in the morning. Other things you're going to need for test matches and stuff so you're ready to go. You'll want to check the video to make sure that it does automatically restart and all of that type of stuff, and the audio will work. So that I know if I go over here, it'll start. Even if I'm doing a test and I stop in the middle and I fade back, it automatically rewinds it. I can go over here all day, every day, and it'll always go back. That's what we like. We want it to start, play, and be done during the opening ceremonies. And that pretty much is all the vMix inputs. So the Stream Deck buttons are controlled both by their own software and then an application in vMix that allows us to use them for that. So the application itself, Stream Deck Mini, shows up, and that's where we basically have assigned it vMix functions and some text titles in there. The fade button is actually an icon that's in this software. It'll overlay it. So when you have the checkered vMix, that means we're going to let vMix decide what's underneath the button that we're looking at. In the case of the fade button, we just want a big fade button. It doesn't matter. We just want it to say fade. So that's the default profile. The settings and why this is going to be important is the Stream Deck buttons are USB. And depending on what port they get plugged into, the assignments will change. So more than likely, you'll have to at least plug the thing in and it'll turn on. It won't quite do what you want it to. You're going to have to teach it the buttons again. And I'll show you. So there's actions, there's shortcuts, and there's activators. Shortcuts are what the buttons do. Activators are what vMix tells the buttons to do. So if we want to change that background for the overlay for FMS to bright green, that's an activator. If we want to change the color for blue cam or red cam, that's an activator. So that's where that happens. So we're going to deal with the shortcuts first. So the shortcuts, it's all going to depend on where we want to do certain functions. I'm going to scooch it around a little bit here so I can kind of see. But so I've got this blue cam button. And maybe I didn't call it blue cam. You know, it depends on who did what last. And its input set to number 4 NDI. Well, that's not what it is anymore. If I scooch this out of the way a little bit, there is a number 4 NDI, but the blue cam really is down here. It's number 10. It's 10 PTZ. So I'm going to want to change some stuff about that shortcut. So the blue stream down, just to make sure, it always should be the down press. So I can do this find button, and we're noticing here it says 8B6CD. I don't know if it's going to change or not. It did not. I would expect it could change for you. It depends on, again, what USB port it gets plugged into. So I know that I want to assign the shortcut a little differently, though. I want it to be this blue cam. And I want to say the display to be the default, meaning I'm going to worry about that in shortcuts later because I'm going to make it a different color of blue. If I change this to thumbnail, then it's a little picture of what it is. So it's what's on the camera. But that should update that blue cam button. And we're just going to go ahead and update these buttons as we go. So if I double click on it, and this is for the full field, I'm going to do a find just to be sure. Looks like we're good, but I want the full field, which is number 9. Like, we can assign it to a dedicated number, but it's not going to carry from week to week. It could by the end of the season, but certainly not in the beginning. In this case, I'm going to leave it to thumbnail, and it's going to show me a little picture of the full field. Same thing here. I'm going to do it for the red cam. I'm going to hold the button down. Didn't really change, but I'm going to go to camera 1 red. Say OK. Space should be fine because I believe that worked already. I'll look underneath here. Yep. Sponsors. Well, see, so these inputs didn't change. So input number 2, because of those orders, and we're going to set it up in 2023 and beyond, audio, sponsors, audience display. And then these buttons won't need to be redone other than you might have to, again, teach them because of the USB. So if it doesn't happen to do what you want it to do, you might have to do the find. And it's not going to change because I'm using the same buttons, but that 85323, there it is. Thumbnail. So at this point, all of those buttons and shortcuts should be good because this says input 3 and it is input 3. So I'm happy there. And I didn't mean to say okay to close it completely. I meant to move to activators. So activators is kind of cool. It's where we can do things via an event to tell it what color should be behind the button in this case. It can do other stuff, but for the buttons, this is what we want. So I think the only difference, again, is the input needs to be updated on this. So we have a default. So there's two states for a button. So like this is my, by the identifier, but this is my blue camera button. So by default, if nothing is, the event isn't happening, I want it to be this really dark color of blue, almost purpley looking. But if this input is the one I want is in the preview, then I want to change the color. And the shortcut will put it in the preview. So that's how the button works, two things at once. You push the button, it tells vMix to put it in the preview. If it's in the preview, vMix tells the button to turn light blue. So there's my light blue color. You can change the colors by grabbing that box. This is the blue camera. Okay. And this is the red camera, which we're going to change. You can see I experimented with the activate number, but not going to matter. And the green one was already working. So now again, you can't see it on the, you can't, you can see my shoulder. Okay, you can't see it on the camera very well, but if I push full cam, that's what happens. It puts it into the preview. If I push blue cam, it puts it in the preview. If I push red cam, and this is important, it's going to move it to the red camera view. And notice I had the full camera view. Well, actually, I had the NDI input over on the right instead of that. You can push the button and make things move that you wanted to be hidden, is the point. Be careful. No, look over at what you've got on what screen to see whether it's blue cam or red cam. And then I'm using the fade button. So you'll notice that the fade up there turns red on the screen that you're seeing, but I'm actually pushing the Stream Deck fade button to make that happen. And then if I need the sponsors, I can push the sponsor button, and then I can fade to it, and I'm all set. And the same with FMS, which is, well, that button will be normally a dark gray, but if I turn it on, it is a bright green that I can easily see that that's active. So it's something I can look at more. So that helps me if I push that sponsor button. Oh, whoops. Well, sorry. If I push the sponsor button and then I fade to it, it's like, oh, wait. What? Oh, yeah, it's bright green. Let me change that. Oh, okay. It's just another visual indicator that you needed to turn that off. But these buttons, that's pretty much all the cover on the buttons. They make life a lot simpler. They should be this standard way on all of the fields. It is something that some people like to tweak, but you should be able to get it back to normal pretty easily with the saved profile in the Stream Deck software.